The cold weather's definitely been moving in. A lot of the trees have all lost their leaves, besides the red oaks. I don't know why, but red oaks always seem to be the trees that hang on. Here's like an oak right here in the middle, and all the leaves are gone. That's actually a white oak, and this is a red oak. So I took a little bit of a gamble this year. There's a variety of popcorn you can buy called Tiny But Mighty. It's an heirloom variety of popcorn. What defines heirloom is seeds that have been carried over 50 plus years without being altered or crossbred with other varieties. This popcorn is called Tiny But Mighty. I really like the taste of it over any other popcorn I've ever had. It's sold in stores. But the thing I was not very sure about is how they dried that popcorn. If they dried it with some sort of propane heat of some sort or something like that and it got too warm, the chances of it germinating wasn't going to be all that good. So this last January or February, I did a little test and I planted a couple of these seeds to see if they would germinate. And they did, so I took a gamble and I decided to try planting this popcorn. Now you'll notice it's tiny. It's really, the kernels are pretty small. Just the size of the cob are really very small. But the taste of this popcorn is just phenomenal. So I'm gonna say good enough for today. We got one wheelbarrow here. I probably got a couple more still sitting on the stocks. I've been noticing the birds got into some of this stuff a lot more this year than they have in the past. Like last year, I think we even harvested a little bit early. We had a bunch of rain coming. I was a little nervous because sometimes the colder temperatures and you get a bunch of rain, sometimes that can cause these seeds to go into sprout. But we just had 2 weeks of cold, wet, rainy weather here and everything's looking pretty good. So I'm kicking myself a little bit about this mistake because I'm not adding on to this pile at all. I'm coming in here and replacing. The other day I was trying to get some wood out of the woods and I just wanted to get it up off the ground, so I stacked it on top of the pallets, but now this has created double work for me. try to handle the wood as little as possible, just because there's a lot of work handling wood. And because I put it exactly where I'm going to end up stacking it, instead of putting down a couple extra pallets temporarily just to get it off the ground, I now have to pull this wood off the pile, split it up, throw it on the ground, wait till I clear off enough space before I can start stacking it. So if you're out cutting wood, learn from my mistake and save yourself a little extra work here. So I've been starting to cut my wood at shorter lengths, generally around 18 inches, with anticipation of upgrading our stove down the road. And the stove we're looking at, it's got a little shorter pieces. So if you have any interest in checking out the stove that we're looking at, I'll put a link to that in the description below. But one thing you'll notice is I generally have gaps between the two rows. And one thing I've been starting to do to make my piles a little bit more stable and stand up a little nicer is a little trick I learned from the hole housings. I used to build a lot more of these hole housings, and every once in a while I'd have one that would cave in and stuff would drop, and someone shared a little tip with me, and taking a decent sized branch and kind of crisscross them on there to help stabilize the pile. The nice part about that is it helps reduce your trips. You cut it to a length that it's easily carryable, instead of cutting it all to stove length and it's just one trip carrying it out of the wood versus multiple. But that has made a tremendous difference in my hole housings over the last couple years and how stable they are. We've got some pretty wild winds from time to time with the open fields, and I've yet to ever have any problems with it. But because of that technique, I've been actually starting to use it a lot more in just more of the traditional style piles that I stack. It's pretty amazing how much these piles settle as they dry over a year or two. So they had these cans on sale. I decided to pick one of these up. So this will be our outside can for our wood ashes. We have two smaller cans that we rotate, keep the hot ashes outside. And having this large one here will allow us to store a lot more wood ash on hand. A lot of times we end up dumping a lot of it in the driveway and just using excess amount just to kind of keep the cans somewhat empty. But having this on hand will be really nice come garden season next year and be able to utilize this in certain areas. Wood ash is pot ash. Of course, you don't want to use too much, but that definitely helps things fruit. I also went and picked up a pair of insulated gloves as well, because we're kind of getting to that season. So I'm excited about this. Now we got to find a home for it. The family's off on a road trip headed across the country to a family reunion. I wasn't able to attend, so I've been staying back, trying to work on fall chores and get things done before the cold, real cold weather really moves in. With that, I've been putting a lot of time and energy into cutting firewood. The other night I actually went and cut with the neighbor. That was a lot of fun. I kind of envision myself having to help him as he gets a little bit older, because they primarily heat all with firewood as well. I think they have a little bit of electric heat in their house, but not a ton. So as they age, I got a feeling I'll have to help them out quite a bit more. But right now we go out together and we kind of split the wood 50-50. He's got a lot of acreage, a lot of down trees. He can hook it up to a tractor, drag the logs out into the open. So it makes it really easy to get wood cut and processed pretty quickly, just because we can pull the trucks right on up to it and get moving. I bring the young blood to the mix and the log splitter, so we process stuff pretty quick. A lot of fun. I've been out right now just kind of taking a quick gander through the woods, trying to figure out what I'll be cutting on here. Pretty easy to identify some of this stuff. Really nice that it's sitting up and hanging off the ground. I'm not really going to bother with this. This is stuff I can come back and deal with later in the winter. I'm more looking for stuff that has hit the ground that I'm worried about it potentially freezing to the ground. Being that there isn't any snow on the ground right now, it's a lot easier to go out and process wood just because it's easier to get in there and get equipment, and then I'm not dealing with stuff freezing to the ground. So kind of taking a gander around here and see what we can find. How deep do you think that is? So a couple weeks ago I was eyeing up this tree and there was no water here. With all the rain we've been getting, it looks like it's all filled back into this kind of marsh area. So I don't think I'll be getting this one anytime soon. This one's looking a little rough, but it's a whole lot of tree laying here, so I might have to check up that way and see if it's looking any better. So taking a little closer look down at that end, it's looking a little punky, kind of mushrooms and stuff on the tree, but the further you get down here, the better shape it looks here. This is an ash tree. You look there, it is uprooted, so there might be a little bit of a risk there. I've had it where these things kind of slingshot back up once you cut them if there's a lot of back pressure, so you gotta be really cautious with those. But I think this one's past the kind of the balance point, so my guess actually there might even be somewhat of a downward pressure, so I'll probably start with an undercut and then come and do my top cut there. But let's pull out the saw here and just see what kind of shape this wood's in. Beautiful. Can't get much better than this. Just a little punkiness in a few spots. That's looking nice. So I'm pretty happy about this. This is an ash tree, definitely one of my favorite varieties of wood to use for firewood. It's very fast drying wood, hardwood, very easy to light. I'm pretty happy about this. Great little find today.